Radio St. George.
Good morning and welcome to KDXI St. George, Radio St. George at 100.3 FM. It's our pleasure to present to you The Garden Show with Artie and Woody. It's time to find out, how does your garden grow? Here are your hosts for The Garden Show, Artie and Woody.
And welcome, folks, to the Fun and Garden Show on Radio St. George 100.3. Good morning, Woody. How are you?
I'm excellent, Artie. How are you, buddy?
Really good.
You look great today.
Well, right back at you.
Boy,
You have a fresh face on.
Oh, yeah.
That's a fresh face if I haven't,
I change it every Saturday morning.
You do?
About 5 a.m.
Well, this is the award-winning Fun and Garden Show. I don't know. Have we counted how many awards we've received from doing this?
We can't get them in this room. Yeah, they're huge.
We have huge, bronze statues. We have ribbons. We have certificates.
Money.
People have given us money, just sent us money just for no reason.
On the way in this morning, behind me, there was a vehicle, and on the side of the vehicle, it said film crew.
Oh, really?
And I thought, they're coming to film us. We've made it.
There is a film crew outside waiting for us.
Yeah.
They're doing a documentary on us.
And all of a sudden, about 2 blocks from here, they turned the other way.
Oh, what?
And it made me feel kind of sad.
What the heck?
Yeah.
I thought we had paparazzi and a film crew.
Well, the paparazzi's around, of course. But
yeah.
I thought we were going to be on Good Morning America or something like that,
Well, we might be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one of these days.
Have you got your medicine today, Artie?
You know what? I do. It's my Diet Dew. I'm a Diet Dew person, and you're a Diet Coke person.
Right. We have prescriptions, so if you're out there wondering why we have signed prescriptions.
But you drink unleaded Diet Coke.
Not in the morning. This is leaded.
Oh, that is leaded. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, you are listening to the Fun and Garden Show on Radio St. George 100.3. Of course, you can always interact with us. We'd love to hear from you. It's funandgarden.com, right?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Fun.
Harvey's on there waiting for you.
And well, what else? What else is on funandgarden.com?
Well, there's a link that goes to Facebook where you can watch any of our past programs.
Sure.
And there's some recipes.
Like your chili recipe your wife makes all the time. That's,
yeah.
And where's my bottle, by the way?
You keep on
it. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, you're not.
No, it's in the planning. It's in the planning.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You're eating it all for yourself.
Well, yeah.
Well, okay, so, folks, if you want to jump on funandgarden.com, ask us a question. I also figured out how to do the podcast to make that work a little bit more efficient.
We're going to cast our pod.
Exactly. We want to thank your son-in-law.
Scott.
Yes.
Scott Lewis, our IT guy.
Yeah, he's going to help us make sure that all of the shows are on our website.
He was up all night last night.
Was he?
Tell
us your good news.
Yeah,
tell us your good news.
His son, his wife had a baby boy, and Miles Lewis is now in the world.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's their first grandbaby, and that's the fourth great-grandbaby for me.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep all 4 of them.
We should have started off the show with that. That's breaking news. That's incredible.
I'm not putting any of them back. I'm going to keep them.
And, as a grandfather, you can spoil the heck out of them.
Yeah, my one granddaughter said, "Grandpa, you're going to be a great grandpa." I says, "I've been a great grandpa for a long time." For a long time.
All right, explain the smiley face that's in the corner.
Well,
maybe some people can see
Harvey's buddy. Can you see? Oh, there we go.
There we go. There we
go.
All right.
Yeah, that's Harvey, and we had a name the smiley face contest,
and I named it Chuckles,
and you named it Chuckles. So you win. You win the contest. So We get an all-expense paid trip to McDonald's.
I love McDonald's.
And a double cheeseburger. So
awesome. And you can see
he's only here during our program.
Yeah.
It's an exclusive. He's not here at the other programs at all.
And of course, you can jump on Facebook on Radio St. George 100.3 to find out what we're talking about. Yeah,
I noticed
this
on there
radio.
the other day that you can do group viewing parties.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so you can get the whole neighborhood in and put us up on a giant screen TV.
That would be wonderful.
And watch us, yeah.
Well, I thought people already do that.
Well, I don't know. I don't know.
All right, okay, so let's see. What's on the agenda today? What are we going to talk about?
I don't have anything.
You don't?
No.
Well, let's talk about your grandbaby
Okay.
again.
No, I have something.
We could go on forever to talk about your grandkids. Yeah.
I don't know if anybody noticed this article in the Spectrum about the pipeline that they're wanting to build.
Oh, fill us in. I have no idea.
Yeah, they're doing some studies, and they're wanting to build a pipeline that's 72 inches. That's 6 foot round, and that's a big pipe.
That is
all the way from Lake Powell over to Kanab and then over to here.
Really?
Yeah, but it's only going to cost. You ready for this?
$40 billion.
About $2.5 billion.
Oh my gosh! Okay, so what's the purpose behind that? What's the rationale?
Well, they're
What's
saying that
on?
we're going to run out of water by 2050. So I'm not going to be here. So I don't.
Me neither.
2050. Let them go dry, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that's a very expensive project.
Oh, but they've got a way to pay for it, Artie.
Oh, Texas.
Here we go. Yeah. If you hook up to, if you move in and you buy a lot and you have a house built, and you want to have a meter put in there so you can have water, that they call them impact fees. So there's a fee to put the meter in and hook up your water, and it's going to go. Are you ready for this? From $1,000 to $15,000 per house.
Oh my gosh!
But wait for it. There's more coming. There's more good news.
Yeah.
Water bills.
Oh my gosh! Mine's high already. What the heck?
Yeah. Well, I got one yesterday for over $100.
Oh.
So let's deal with $100. You have a water bill for $100, and you're watering everything, your tomato gardens and all that. In 5 to 7 years, that's going to go up 350%.
Oh my goodness!
So your water bill would be about $400 a month.
Is that just for St. George, or is that Washington County?
Washington County.
Oh my gosh!
So here you go.
Wow.
I mean, we talk about xeriscaping and all that. How can you afford to have a big, nice lawn or a yard when you have to pay $300-400 a month for water?
Well, that's new show material, though. We can in future shows we can talk about how to rip out your garden.
Yeah.
how not to have the garden.
I think we should take the sod and the shrubs we rip out and take them down to the water district and put it on their front porch.
You know, I desperately want to talk politics, and I promise to you and to everyone else that I'm not going to. There is a way. Actually, there's 2 ways. No, actually, 3 ways that the city or the county can pay for it, but they're controversial, and we won't talk about it.
Okay.
But there's ways where it wouldn't impact us, and I'm sure people can probably think about a couple of the ideas that I have. But you know, there's alternate ways to pay for stuff like this.
Well, you know,
and you know what? Actually, I don't want to talk about politics. In my opinion, they should pour money into our freaking schools first before they do the pipeline.
You know, I have to say I'm a retired guy. And I live on, mainly Social Security. So I can tell you for an absolute fact that if it goes up like that, my yard will be taken out and it'll just be gravel.
Yeah,
Because
I'm sure.
I can't not afford to spend that kind of money on water.
I bet there's a lot of people that will follow your lead. But anyway, so this is supposed to be the fun and garden show.
Well,
now you got me worked up. I'm just kidding.
The reason I brought it up is because I thought there's got to be people out there that are unaware of what they're doing. And the thing is, they'll go along and they'll build the pipeline, and then all of a sudden you'll get your water bill and you'll faint.
No, I'm glad you brought it up. I was just pulling your leg. But,
it just bugs me, man.
Of course. There's lots of things I want to say, but let's just say I'm holding back my comments. But the thing is, I'm glad you brought it up. Is that going to be voted on, or is that an actual thing?
That's an actual thing.
That's an actual thing. They
don't have to vote on it.
We didn't have a chance to vote on that thing?
Well, no, they passed a law in the state legislature where these outfits like the Water Conservation District, they have the authority to raise taxes. And of course they've always had the authority to raise the water rates, But when I moved down from Salt Lake, water was cheaper here than it was in Salt Lake.
Very inexpensive.
But not compared to, 350% increase.
Don't you think we should have had an opportunity to vote on that? That doesn't seem right, Woody.
But the thing is that they let everybody know it might not go through, and that's what they're afraid of.
Yeah.
But, that's just me, and I...
I'm
people,
there with
I think a lot of people are kind of neutral on the pipeline. Mm-hmm. But if they knew what their water bill was going to go up to, they'd have a fit.
Well, the expense of paying for that. I took some animals out to Best Friends yesterday because I volunteer and I help out rescue groups. That's a long ways out to Kanab. Yeah. That's a long ways.
72-inch pipe, that's a big pipe.
That's a lot of money. That's a freaking long ways out just to Kanab, but then let alone Lake Powell.
It's as far from Kanab to Lake Powell as it is from St. George to Kanab. So you're looking at about 160 miles total. It's about 80 miles from St. George to Kanab and another 80 from Kanab to Lake Powell.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Well, what else are you gonna? Are you?
I'd like.
Now you got my blood boiling.
Oh yeah. Well, just go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. I'll wake you.
I never sleep during the show. This is riveting. Riveting talk, riveting conversation.
I'll wake you if there's something else that's exciting. I was on the website. I put down the information that we were going to talk about canning and bottling, and we are. But
now canning as far as being fired.
No.
What to do when you're
canning
canned?
As far as putting food in jars.
Oh, food in jars. Yeah. Oh, I thought you.
Yeah.
I thought
we've both been canned a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Matter of fact, I used to take an empty box, to work every day,
just in case,
and set it next to my desk. They would always come up to me, Artie, what is that? Oh, just in case. Just in case I get canned. Yeah. So it's not that kind of a can.
No.
Oh, okay.
And it made me start to think about the history of preserving food.
Okay.
Yeah, and I thought it'd be fun to talk about that. If we go back, let's go back 10,000 years just for a round number.
Okay.
And the problem that the people had back then, I was going to say cavemen, but I don't know. The problem that people had back then was if they had some food, like some meat, mm-hmm. or if they grew some plants that they could eat, like corn or tomatoes, let's say, to make it kind of silly, but they could use them and they could eat them, but they couldn't preserve them. And then along would come winter and they would starve.
Yeah.
So they had to start looking for ways to make the food last. And it's kind of interesting how the things they came up with. What do you think the first way was that they discovered to make food last? Well, let's do a quiz.
Back in the day,
way back.
a Frigidaire.
Yeah, that's what it was. They went
With the
down.
long extension
They went
cord.
down and got a Samsung fridge. The only problem was there was nothing to plug it into.
No, I would say caves. They would dig a big hole.
Big hole.
Yeah, a big hole or a cave
and throw a steak in it.
or salt.
Salt. Now you're getting somewhere. Actually, the first method that they came up with was drying.
Oh, okay.
You know, put the steak on a rack and let it sit out in the sun and let it dehydrate. And
You've got jerky.
Yeah, you got jerky, and it would dehydrate and become dried and hard, and then it would last, and then they could rehydrate it, or they could just chew it and, like you say, jerky. So drying is one of the methods. In fact, we still use drying today. We have dehydrators that you can buy.
Oh, my dad actually made one.
Yeah.
It was humongous.
Yeah,
It was great that he dried everything, and it was.
You can dry fruit, like I've done apricots, and then you can make your own jerky and
the diet that I always plan to go on, where I plan and I fail miserably. It always included freeze dried pineapple and apples for snacks, but
that's a great snack.
Yes, when I go on my diet 2 or 3 years from now, I'll definitely do that.
So anyway, drying was one of their methods, and then they that worked sometimes. Back in I was just looking at my reference material, but back there, clear back in Egypt and those kind of things, they used to do herbs and spices and meats and fruits and even vegetables.
Really?
Yeah. And then what do you think the next way was to preserve?
Well, I kind of want to go back to the caves.
The caves?
I don't know. They dig big holes like the pioneers.
And they burrow in and become worms or what?
No, I don't know. Yeah.
No, you were right when you said salt.
Oh yeah, okay.
Salt. If they pack it in salt, it takes the moisture out, but it does some other things to the meat or whatever to preserve it. And then the other idea was after you do that, then you want to keep it cool, like you said in the cave. Mm-hmm. You don't want it out in the heat. You want it cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were
so a
on
combination of those two.
Yeah.
Salt and a cave or in the ground.
It's kind of interesting when Lewis and Clark. You've heard of those guys.
Yeah.
And let's see, they were. What was the year on Lewis and Clark? It was like 1790 something. And anyway, they traveled clear to the West Coast, and by the time they got to the upper part of the Colorado River, they were starving to death.
1804 to 1806.
Okay. They were having a heck of a time because they'd run out of food.
Yeah.
And so they traveled down the river. They made some rafts, and they traveled down the Columbia, and I'll tell you, that is a river. I've been to see it, and it's unbelievable. At the point that it runs into the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, it's humongous.
5 miles wide.
Yeah.
5 miles.
Actually, I think I've seen that.
Yeah, and there's big ocean-going ships that go up it.
Barges, tons of barges.
Oh, yeah, and it's amazing. But anyway, when they got down there, they run into some Indians, natives, Native Americans, and here on the beach, guess what they had? They had these great big salmon that they'd caught, and they were preserving them. How, Artie, do you think?
Well, let's see. They're on rafts.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking. I'm talking about the Indians.
Oh, the Native Americans.
Yeah.
I would. I'm stuck on caves, Woody. I have no idea.
Yeah, actually, well,
caves. Caves.
They got to the coast on the beach.
Oh, in the water?
No.
Oh,
There was these, they have these huts, they'd built, and they had big racks for these salmon, and they were drying them out in the sun for winter. And then winter would come, and they had this dried salmon that they could chew on, and it's 100% protein, and it was Lewis and Clark. First thing they did was sit down and have a couple of salmon. They were hungry.
Wow.
They were almost dying. And the Indians gladly shared with them.
Yeah.
And they spent the winter there. They built a log cabin just up off the coast in the forest and spent the winter in there and got fat and sassy from eating salmon.
Fat and sassy.
Yeah. And they would go out and hunt deer and things like that to go with it.
Yeah.
But, salmon is pretty good stuff, and they would dry it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so that's kind of neat, but preserving food was a real problem. You can imagine if you're the handcart company or the wagon train, you don't have a fridge inside your wagon.
Yeah.
So how do you preserve stuff? There was... to go back to salt, you've heard of salt pork.
Salt pork, okay.
Yeah, they'd take a barrel and put a bunch of salt in it and put pork in there and just let it sit in the salt. And there's things like you've heard of the term hardtack.
What is it?
It's dried bread. They just let it dry.
Dried bread?
Bread, and then
that's croutons.
It'd be rock hard, and then if they were attacked by the Indians, they could throw the bread at them. And
so the pioneers developed the croutons.
Yeah, the croutons and the chef salad. The chef salad was one of their inventions.
Wow, we're just
having fun.
We're filling people with a bunch of BS, aren't we?
Yeah. One of the next things I discovered was smoking the meat.
Okay.
And they'd take the meat like a ham and they'd roll it up in paper
and smoke it.
Put it in their mouth and light the end of it. No, they would smoke it, and to do that, they had a smokehouse. And that's where you'd go to have a smoke. Is in the house.
In the house.
And they would hang meat in there like hams and stuff, and they would smoke them, and they found out that preserved the meat.
Smoking preserved.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Plus, it gives it a different taste.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of a combination of flavoring it and drying it out. So they would smoke it. So
interesting.
That's kind of interesting. And then they came up. The next one they came up with was, what do you think?
Ice blocks.
No.
Large rocks.
Large rocks. They would hit it. No. The next thing they came up with was pickling.
Oh.
Yeah,
really?
Pickling? Like with vinegar.
Would they do that with meat too?
Yeah. Vinegar is an acid. And they found out that if they take it and they dilute it a bit, and they you can make pickles, of course, but they would think about it. You had beets. They would do that with pickled beets.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah, and they had all kinds of stuff that they pickled, especially.
I'm not a beet fan.
How about hard-boiled eggs? You see that?
Yes.
The convenience stores.
Yes.
And it makes me want to spit up when I see them because I couldn't put that in my mouth.
I worked for a convenience store one time where someone actually reached into the jar with their hand. They put their whole hand in that pickling juice and grabbed an egg, and needless to say, we had to throw the whole thing out. Okay, so I'm sorry, I derailed this again. We have about 50 seconds before our first break.
Okay.
So we've been talking about different ways back in the day where they preserve things.
Yeah.
And actually, some good ways that today where you can do it. Like I said before, my father used to always freeze dry food, and it was great. It was a perfect snack for us, and it was healthy.
And one of the things that the pioneers come up with about this time, which was, like 1860, 1870, they come up with the idea of digging a cellar and putting the stuff underground
and we'll
in
talk
the summer.
And we'll talk more about that here right after the break on the Fun and Garden Show starring Woody and Artie.
We're going to put you in the cellar, Artie.
All right, more on the way on the Fun and Garden Show on Radio St. George 100.3. Stay with us.
Stay with us.
PM on Radio St. George 100.3 FM.
We now return to the Garden Show with Artie and Woody.
All right, folks, it is the Fun and Garden Show exclusively on Radio St. George 100.3. We want to thank Sean Denovan for letting us do this every week. And, he's trusted us with the airwaves here.
We call him Mr. Big.
Mr. Big. Mr. Big. He's awesome.
He's the head guy.
And, folks, if you want to interact with us, of course, we'd love to hear from you. We're on Facebook Live, streaming on YouTube as well. And, of course, you can always go to funandgarden.com, leave your comments there, see Harvey, and ask Harvey a question.
Talk to him, yeah.
Ask Harvey a question, get recipes, gardening tips, all sorts of fun stuff.
Harvey likes the chili sauce.
He likes the,
yeah,
he does.
He does, yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so before the break, we were talking about canning in the old days.
Preserving food, yeah. And the next advancement in preserving food was due in a great amount to, guess who? Just guess.
Brigham Young.
Brigham Young. Wrong.
Oh. Wait, what was the question again? I don't even know what the question
There was somebody that was responsible for a huge step in preserving food, and it was Napoleon.
Oh, I was going to say Mason, the guy that invented the mason jars.
Yeah. Or Ball. His partner was Ball. No, it was Napoleon. He offered a large cash prize because his army traveled so much, and they needed a way to preserve food. So he offered a cash prize for anyone that could figure out a way to do that. Huh. And there was a Frenchman, I won't read his name because I'm not very good at pronouncing those names, but he came up with the idea of putting it in glass jars and then removing the air.
Oh.
If you can get things into a glass jar in a bath of water or vinegar and remove the air, it lasts longer. Okay? So that was the next step for a few years. And then a guy by the name of Louis Pasteur came along, and he figured out a way to take the liquid that you put in the jar and to pasteurize it, which means to kill all the bacteria and stuff in the jar. Mm-hmm. And now with the pasteurization, he figured out how to pasteurize wine and milk and a lot of different things.
All sorts of stuff.
Yeah. And what it did is it made stuff last longer because there was no bacteria in it. Mm-hmm. Okay? And that's the idea behind when you open something and after you open it, you keep it in the fridge, is because the fridge is cool and it cuts down on the bacteria in the food.
Yeah.
Because it's cool. So, anyway.
So canning was the big deal, and it was invented.
The what?
Canning. So you're talking about canning?
Well,
this was kind of what started it off.
Yeah, this was kind of the precursor to canning.
Okay.
And then around, this would have been, 17 or 1880, 1890. Mm-hmm. And then they come along with what we consider now as canning.
Canning.
And that was to sterilize the food, sterilize the liquid you put in there, so you're, in effect, pasteurizing it, taking the air out, but then putting a seal on it that kept it in that state. And they found out that they could, you could still make it last longer by putting it down in a fruit cellar or keeping it out of the sun and keeping it cool. But now, all of a sudden, because of the glass jars and stuff, you could store stuff for a year or two. And that was a big step. And then the next thing was, what do you think, Artie?
Metal cans.
Metal cans? No.
See, I'm on Google. I'm fact checking you,
Oh,
and
are you?
I'm trying to cheat.
The next thing was ice.
Oh, ice. Okay.
Ice. So they went up to Alaska and they got, big blocks of ice and carried them down. And
So they did.
No, yeah. Would have been a good idea, but, it was.
Well, they had a conveyor belt from Alaska.
It would melt. So they had to, they put it in the pipeline.
Is that what they did?
Yeah.
Boy, we're making stuff up now.
Yeah, that's why they wanted a pipeline, is to ship that ice down.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And now it's gone. That's why there's no snow in Alaska anymore.
Really?
No, they figured out it was a real big problem in Chicago. It was a center for the beef industry,
Okay.
and they would take herds of cattle to Chicago and slaughter them, and then the market for the beef was the East Coast. That's where everybody was, but if they hung them in boxcars and shipped them to the East Coast, they'd be spoiled.
Yeah.
So some guy figured out how he could refrigerate the cars and keep them cold so that when it got to to New York or someplace that it was just as fresh as could be. So basically, you can say ice, but really what it means is keeping it cold.
Yeah.
Because if you keep it down around 38 degrees, the bacterial activity is way, way, way low. And then the next thing they wanted to do was to ship some overseas, so they actually had to figure out a way to refrigerate the compartments in ships so that they could ship some of that beef around the world.
In 1929, they started flash freezing things while shipping. What does that mean?
Was that the Flash, the guy that's in the comic books?
Actually, yes.
Yes, yeah. he ran around the meat so fast that it froze. One of the other things that help preserve meat is kind of the opposite of what we're talking about, but burning.
Burning? What?
Burning. You can. I mean, think about it. If you've got a steak and you put it on a stick and turn it over an open fire, and you basically barbecue it, it's still susceptible to rotting, but not near as fast. I mean, it's kind of like a quick way to dry it, only you do it through burning.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because it says here there's a biological or biochemical action that takes place in the meat when it's cooked.
Huh.
And so it makes it, it's like when my son was on his mission, they would cook a turkey and they would leave it on the table for about 2 weeks and just come in and slice turkey.
Oh, that's
off.
horrible.
I know. Yeah, I think that it's a miracle they didn't get, poisoned.
Oh, my gosh, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, only missionaries can get away with
Now,
that.
Was that in Kansas?
That was in Chicago.
Wait, really?
Yeah, he served his mission in
I
Chicago.
thought I was actually joking about being in Kansas. I thought this was a foreign country where they would leave the turkey on the.
Yeah.
Really? I was joking, but really?
Yep.
Huh. Do they know that refrigerators exist in Chicago?
But missionaries leave their brains home, and you know, so plus at 18 they don't have a brain yet. So now we always talk about gardening on this show, which means fruit and vegetables. Mm-hmm. Fruit and vegetables, one of the really best ways to preserve it, well, there's two really. One of them is by drying. You can buy packages of freeze-dried, banana slices and apricot leather,
and that stuff is freaking expensive. I want to try to eat healthy, but a pack of freeze-dried pineapple, which are fantastic, are about $4 or $5 a bag. It's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Anyway,
when we go to Salt Lake, we make a trail mix. We'll put some dried pineapples, some banana slices, some raisins.
Love that.
Craisins.
Yep.
And maybe some wheat Chex cereal in there. And if you put it in the oven beforehand and put a little Worcestershire sauce on it and heat it, it gives it a taste that's really fun.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah, thanks.
No, I absolutely love the Chex mix idea, but I have to draw a line. The Worcestershire sauce.
You don't think that's good?
Is gross. I'm sorry.
Oh, come on.
I didn't mean to diss you live on the radio.
Well, it's okay.
No, that's a great idea.
What else are you going to put on it? Maybe some hog fat or
some lard. No, how about just leaving it how it is, just eating it right out?
You could, yeah.
Okay, but maybe I shouldn't knock it until I try it. So
yeah, maybe you shouldn't. But
so you just sprinkle a little bit of
Never stopped you in the past, Artie.
So just a little bit of Worcestershire sauce.
Yeah, and then
You drizzle it on.
you drizzle a little bit in there, and then you stir it just so they get a little teeny bit on.
Okay, I vow to you, I promise that I'm going to try that. So
Okay.
I'm sorry I knocked it because I shouldn't knock something until I try it.
Let's see. One of the keys to preserving food is to remove the moisture.
Okay.
And, that's like dehydration, everything. We have a dehydrator that we used to put. I actually bought some roasts and would slice them and then soak them in teriyaki.
Oh,
And then put them in
yeah.
there and dry and make my own jerky.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you can have a lot of fun with some neat things, food-wise, by doing different ways to preserve,
As long as you don't put Worcestershire sauce on.
Right. Yeah, exactly. One of the tricks to preserving is to get rid of the microbacteria,
Okay.
and your drying does that, pickling does that, and then canning and preserving does that. My father-in-law used to deer hunt a lot, and they would take the deer meat and slice it into cubes, about an inch square,
Yeah.
and put it in the bottles and then can it. You have to put it in a pressure cooker and cook it for
You can actually do that.
2 or 3 hours.
Interesting.
Oh,
Uncooked?
uncooked.
Uncooked. And
Yeah.
then obviously
It preserves it.
okay, you preserve it, then you can fry it up later.
A year later, you drain it off,
No kidding.
slice it up, put it in a frying pan, and it's like filet mignon.
No kidding.
Oh, it's
I didn't
wonderful.
think about that. That's a wow.
Deer meat actually tastes good if you do that.
Huh.
And you can do the same thing with fish, like salmon.
Well, I guess, because it's in a bottle or a jar with spices, it marinates,
Yeah.
that whole time. And, I can see why it would be really tasty.
I've heard that salmon, I think this is correct, if you put it in a jar and you pressure cook it, it'll actually dissolve the bones in the salmon.
Really?
So that when you take it
Are you
out.
serious?
Yeah, when you take it out and use it, there's no bones in there anymore. If there's anybody out there that knows the answer to that, you can give us a call. But anyway. Oh, and there's one other way to preserve things that we haven't talked about. And guess what that is?
Refrigerators. Ice boxes.
Wrong.
I don't know.
You put it on your head, put the hat on, walk around when it's hot.
Oh, really?
No. The other way is fermentation.
Fish. What?
Yeah.
That-
Wine, whiskey,
Oh.
fermentation. Yeah. I had a relative, which shall remain anonymous, that used to make fruit cakes and soak them in rum.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And after you had about 3 pieces of fruit cake, you were rummy.
That was you, wasn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, fermentation is the other way to preserve things. Of course, it has to be a liquid form, and you let it sit for however long, a month or 2 months, and it ferments, and it gets really fun to eat. Okay, we're getting through the history of
back to fish with the bones dissolving. According to Google, for example, canned salmon. Wait, hold on. Okay, if you want to enjoy some canned salmon, just drain the liquid and it's ready to eat, or add your favorite dish. You can remove the skin if you'd like. Don't throw out the soft, calcium-rich bones. Mash them with a fork, and you won't even notice them.
Oh,
Huh.
I couldn't do that.
Yeah, that's kind of gross.
Yeah.
But I guess that's kind of, I don't know what the point was, why I brought that up. Wait, okay. Well, oh no, but you mentioned that they dissolve.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
know. Does it say they do or don't?
Well, I guess they just become soft and easier to eat. So.
Back in the cowboy times,
Uh-huh.
they would have what they called an ice house
Yeah.
outside, and that's when they figured out how to do refrigeration and ice, and you would and ice boxes, which were just boxes that were insulated, and the iceman cometh, and he would bring a block of ice and put it over his shoulder and carry it into your house or into your ice house, and put however many blocks you wanted to buy, and it would keep stuff cold while it melted. And if your house you were using was insulated pretty well, it'd last a long time in there, the ice. And then they went to ice boxes, and that's where that term comes from. They actually had a compartment on the top of the ice box that they put a block of ice in, and then cold air sinks as it cools, and it would actually circulate the air and keep things cold.
And like you said, they have insulation or whatever
Yeah,
to kind of keep it.
And then we got into the time of real refrigeration and electricity and all that stuff, and the Iceman, he cometh and then he goeth.
Oh, let me ask you about preserving back in the day with those ice boxes. Is it true that they put not sawdust but like hay? Like hay would be a way to preserve the ice, or am I just making that up?
I think it's sawdust. I think
Sawdust.
you're right to begin with. I think that in my mind, I'm thinking that I've heard that before, and I'm thinking I've seen blocks of ice that have sawdust on them. And so you can look that up while we're talking. Now, we're down to the subject of actually canning and preserving fruits and vegetables that we want to put up.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other methods that come along, one of the things that has driven the development of preservation of food has been wars. Armies have to have food to eat.
Sure.
And so, they developed the can, they developed freeze-dried things, they developed the sea rations and all that kind of stuff. And but then we get into really preserving and canning food. When I was a small lad, my mother used to start about August, and she would put up stuff until after Christmas.
Really?
And we kept it down in the basement. We had shelves, and I would say by Christmas we'd have 200 or 300 quarts of preserved stuff down
No
there.
kidding.
Yeah.
Oh.
She did peaches, she did pears, she did fruit cocktails, she did chili sauce.
Wow.
She did pickles. She did relish.
Now, back to the chili sauce. Is that where is she
the source.
is she the source of the famous chili sauce that you guys always
and
make?
back to her family back.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it was for us, it was a really big way. My dad worked in the produce department up in Salt Lake, the big warehouses, and a lot of times he could get fruit and vegetables free. So if you could put them up, and then you could use them all year long, it was a great deal.
That's
cool. There's basically a couple of different ways to can stuff, and one of them is hot packing. Now, I talked to my wife about this yesterday, and I'm not an expert on this kind of thing. So if there's anybody out there, if I make a mistake, don't run in here and hit me over the head.
Now, hot packing bottles or cans or both?
Bottles.
Bottles, okay.
So hot packing basically is where you cook whatever material you want to preserve, and you cook it in a large, say, roaster,
Okay.
like chili sauce.
With water.
You put all the stuff in it, in this roaster, and you put it on the stove.
And you boil it.
And you boil it.
Oh, yeah, that is the thing.
And you boil it for 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, my parents used to do that actually
Right.
all the time.
And then you take the bottles
Mm-hmm.
and you boil them, and so you got to sterilize them because you can't have bacteria in them.
Yeah.
And then you take the lids; they have a ring and a flat.
A flat thing, yeah.
Yeah. And the flat thing has a rubber grommet around it that seals the bottle.
Yep.
So you sterilize all that, and then you take the bottle and you take your hot material and you pour it in the bottle up to the neck of the bottle.
Yeah.
And then you put the flat on, and then you tighten the ring, okay, and set it aside. And let's say you do that to 25 quarts of chili sauce.
Sure.
Then as it cools the next 3 or 4 hours, you'll hear the lids pop as they seal,
Yep.
okay? In my mind, that's what I call hot packing,
Yeah.
okay? Cold packing is, and this is a very simple definition, where you take the material that you want to preserve, you put it in the bottles cold. You sterilize the bottles, you sterilize the rings and everything. You put it in the bottles cold.
And do you
And
refrigerate it or
and-
something?
Well,
or?
no. Then you seal them.
Uh-huh.
Then you put them in a large pot or a pressure cooker,
Okay.
and you cook them for hours in the bottle to the point that the stuff in the bottle actually cooks.
Oh.
And then you go about the same thing where you take them out and let them cool, and they'll seal and so on.
Just different way of doing
Just
it.
a different way of doing it. But they started out, especially with pressure cookers,
Yeah.
because it cooks faster, and you get a better, cooking on it. And then you take it out, and the 100 pounds per square inch and so on would, cook it. There are people that swear about one method or the other.
Mm-hmm.
You can use either method on almost anything. In my house, we hot pack,
Sure.
and I've never had a bottle go bad. Now, once in a while, we'll be doing like chili sauce or stewed tomatoes, and we'll do the whole procedure, and then it won't seal.
Sure.
For some reason, something happened. It didn't get tied, or whatever.
You got to be careful with those sometimes. Yeah.
So what you do is then you take the bottle that didn't seal and you put it in the fridge, and you use that immediately rather than putting it in the pantry and letting it sit for a year.
Well, you know what, Woody? These are really good ideas. You never know when a disaster is going to hit, where you're not
That's
going to
right.
have access to the stores, and or you lose a job, or whatever. And this is
Food storage.
yeah, absolutely. And of course, the local popular religion, always
Encourages it.
yeah, always encourages it.
Well, Artie, one of the neat things about it is we've said all year that if you grow something in your garden, it tastes better.
Yeah.
Now you're taking that food that tastes better and you're putting it
Absolutely.
in bottles and you're preserving it so that you can have it during the winter.
Yep. And whether you're religious or not,
You still have to eat.
oh yeah, I mean the LDS Church has a great campaign as far as always being prepared and actually you can
72-hour kits.
yeah.
and
I mean it whether or not you're religious or not,
Doesn't
that's
matter.
a great it's a great idea to always be prepared for emergency,
Yep.
because you have earthquakes, tornadoes, whatever.
Look
so.
what happened down in Puerto Rico and stuff. And
Absolutely.
The power's out. And
Yeah.
So anyway, you preserve these things one method or the other, and you can go online. You can go to the companies that sell those supplies like Ball and Kerr, Kerr.
It's Ball and Kerr or Ball or
Or Kerr. Two different
two
brands.
different companies. Okay, I'm
and
sorry.
They'll help you online and tell you how to do it. Plus, the Utah State Extension Service in Logan, you can call up there and they'll tell you how to do all that stuff.
They
over the
are
phone.
absolutely fantastic. A
They're
great
wonderful.
resource. I think
It's free, and they'll spend all the time you need with you.
and not a lot of people know that wonderful service exists.
Yeah, they'll not only will their agent here in the county help you with problems with your garden, but they'll help you know how to can stuff and preserve it
Absolutely.
and so
Super
on.
friendly folks.
Yeah.
Great service.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I know with the deer hunt coming up, a lot of people anymore, we used to have to rent a locker that was refrigerated and put the deer meat in it.
Which costs
But now,
tons of money,
Now
probably.
they make jerky out of it and carry around a backpack that's full of jerky, and they just eat it all day long.
Well, Woody, we've come to an end of another riveting, exciting show.
Put it in the fridge.
Yep.
Artie, it's been a hunk of heaven.
Any parting thoughts?
Well, you get better looking every day, but I want you to be aware of something, Artie, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. The lawn chair lady's coming home.
That's true. My neighbor, Woody, referenced the fact that I have a snowbird, and she's very nice. But
Beulah.
Beulah is her name.
Yeah.
She likes to sit in her lawn chair with binoculars and watch me all day long.
All day long.
Yep.
And she comes here at the studio and sits out there and
She does.
waits for you to get
And
out.
if there's just one little teeny weed that is poking out in the middle of my grass or anywhere on my property, she comes over and she with her scissors.
Yeah.
With
You
her,
know what I
she
did?
trips. One day I came out and she was
Nipping your weeds?
yeah, she was digging up the garden. I didn't have to pay anyone to mow
Good.
my lawn there for a while. I just let it grow. Log, and she comes over and mows it.
Do you know what I did yesterday morning, Artie?
What's that?
I got some white paint and did my trees
Oh.
with a paintbrush.
I should probably do that to one of mine.
Yeah.
Well, Woody, that's another wonderful show in the can, so to speak. And I want to thank.
So we've been canned?
We've been canned. Want to thank Sean Denovan for letting us do this. Wonderful show on Radio St. George 100.3. Want to thank Dixie State University. Want to thank everybody in the ward.
I want to thank Artie, and I want to thank myself
Want to thank my mom and dad.
and Grandma and Grandpa.
I'm grateful for
my
everybody.
Cousin Ernie.
If there's anyone in the ward that I've offended, I am sorry.
Yeah, truly sorry.
Okay.
And if there's anybody in my ward that I've offended, I'm not sorry.
All right, folks, join us again next week, same time, same channel, for another exciting edition of the Fun and Garden Show on Radio St. George 100.3.
You've been listening to The Garden Show. Good morning and welcome to KDXI St.